Hello and welcome to another video by the Laser Sports Academy. Hope we've been enjoying the content so far. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at how to hold the phaser. It's one of the things that casual viewers and players or people on that first season of League really wonder is like when they look at those experienced players, they look and they go, well, why are they holding the phaser in that weird way, and like, you know, how do I even do that? So in today's video, we're going to be looking at answering those questions of how to hold the phaser, like the more experienced, like the professionals, I guess if you could call it that, and also like provide some insight about like why they might be doing that as well. So let's get right to it. Alrighty, onto the first of the phaser grips we're going to be looking at today. We have the over-under grip. So this is one that I find newer people, especially on Nexus, gravitate towards more earlier on when they're playing, because of its relative closeness to what we call a rifleman grip, or like a standard grip. So a standard grip or a rifleman grip is where you're basically holding it as if you would like a normal firearm. You know, we all see it in the movies and when we play video games and stuff. So not today to say that there's no merit in holding in a rifleman grip. There's still a few players around playing like at nationals and stuff that hold it with a rifleman grip. I just find that at the highest levels, like you don't really see that for a bunch of reasons. The grips we'll be showing today offer a little bit more maneuverability, flexibility, and yeah, all sorts of good stuff like that. So to do the over-under grip, we'll start off in the rifleman grip, all right, just to demonstrate it. But I would take my left hand, or for left-handers it'd be your right hand, so we'll just say your hand set to hand will come off the phaser, and rather than cupping underneath, it will kind of go over the top. So now I've got one hand that's over the top of the phaser, one that's underneath, hence the name over-under. Depending on the system you use, how this looks will be a little bit different, because obviously for Helios for instance, like it's got this big handle thing that comes off here, and that's where the hand sensor is. So typically on Nexus you'll see people will hold it with, on Helios rather, with like their finger along that trigger guard bit. But for Nexus, which is what I've got now, you can just place your thumb on that thing and then wrap the rest of your hand around the top. Another thing you want to do is, rather than the phaser being below, kind of like in front of your chest like this and facing in front of you, I would recommend facing it to the side and then either having it below your hips or above your hips. We'll talk more about why we face it to the side, but the reason we have it below or above the hips is because of the covering rules that we have in place in Australia or Australasia, and in like most of the rule sets around the world as well, where I'm not allowed to cover my chest sensors in particular, but any of my sensors with my body part. So for instance, even if I was to use my over-under grip, but I had my hands kind of like my arms in the middle like this, you can see how I'm partially covering my chest sensor here with my left arm in this instance. This would incur a penalty, which obviously we want to try and avoid. So in general, keep it at your hips or above your shoulders. Onto the second of our phaser grip variations, which we'll be showing today, we have what I call double overs. So building on what we had before, so we went from a rifleman grip and we took our hand set to hand and we placed it on the top, but the right hand's pretty much stayed the same. What we're going to do in this time is we're going to leave the hand sensor hand where it is, take the right hand, the trigger hand off, and then instead of coming underneath, we're actually going to like place it over the top with my thumb going through the trigger guard, which would then mean that I'm now shooting with my thumb instead of my fingers. And then you can hold the rest of it with like your hand and fingers, whichever way you find comfortable. Again, depending on the style of phaser and system you're on, it will look different. But in general, I now have two hands that are over the phaser instead of what we had before, which was over-under. So for me, I actually prefer to use this one for the most part, because in my own playstyle, I like to get close to people, take a lot of duels, but I also like to use panels quite a lot. When I'm using my double over grips, I find it's very good and very comfortable to shoot to my side, and then also like a little bit behind me as well, more so than the over-under grip. So for me, when I'm taking duels, like whether it's like just in the open, like I still like to get quite close to them myself, or if it was on a panel, I prefer to use this double over grip because of the comfort I have shooting to my side and behind me. Not to say that you can't do that with the over-under grip, you very much still can. but for me, this is just a preference thing. I prefer to use my over-under grip when I'm actually moving around the arena, because whilst the double overs is really good at shooting to my side and behind me, it's a little bit more uncomfortable. If I were to try and do it with a low posture, it's almost like impossible to shoot 90 degrees from me. I can lift it above my head and do it, but I find it's a little bit more comfortable and easy to do shoot in front of me with an over-under grip. So thus, when I'm moving around, I use an over-under grip. When I'm taking jewels and paddling and lunging as well, I prefer to use the double overs grip. But that's all a preference thing. You can find whichever ones you like to use when. Maybe you always use the double overs, maybe you always use over-under, or maybe you swap between them like I do. That's completely up to you, and it's part of the beauty of this game is like there's so many different play styles and body types and ways to play the game. You kind of get to build your own style, so have fun with that. Alrighty, before I leave you today, I just wanted to give just a general tip, I guess, about maximizing the use of these Phasor holds. So you'll notice in all of the demonstrations I've given already that in general the Phasor is facing to my side, whereas with a rifleman grip, it kind of naturally faces in front of me. So this is one of the things that I see newer people struggle with a bit, is maybe they start using these different Phasor holds, but they still try and like shoot directly like 90 degrees from where their hips are facing. And so one of the small adjustments that I would recommend making is when you're moving around the arena, when you're taking jewels, whatever you're doing, putting like a slight rotation on your body. So I would say that's like about a 45-degree rotation from, if this is 90, about 45. When you're moving around the arena, when you're lunging at people, when you're taking jewels and stuff, just being a little bit more side on, because what this does is it faces the Phasor in the right direction, right? So if I was going this way, if I'm side on like this, it's facing the right direction, which makes that more comfortable, but it also has the added benefit of it slightly rotates my chest sensor away. Obviously if I rotate too much, I'm going to expose my back sensor instead, but if you just do that slight 45 degree, it rotates my chest sensor away a bit. The bigger you are, the more this effect is like, the more impactful this effect is. It's one of those things where like it's not gonna mean that you're like impossible to shoot. You're still it's like very possible to get shot, especially once people get really good accuracy and stuff. But it's one of those 1%ers where occasionally, instead of copying a shot on the shoulder, they might miss by like a few centimeters and hit you in the ribs, and that might be the difference between you getting that base that wins you that game. So yeah, as a general tip for comfort and just as a little 1%er to slightly reduce the chances of you getting tagged, add like a 45-degree rotation away from 90, and yeah, see how you go with it. Alrighty, so that concludes our beginner's look at how to hold the Phasor. So we had our over-under grip where one hand's over, one hand's under, and our double overs where we've got two hands that are over the Phasor. Like I was kind of saying earlier in the video, it's not the be-all, end-all. There is slight variations on how to hold the Phasor. You don't have to hold it this way. So I would encourage you to use this video, I guess, to, if you're completely new to it, give the handholds a go, see which one you prefer, or maybe you like to use both in different situations like I do. If you're a player that's perhaps a bit more experienced and like you only ever use one of these handholds, I would encourage you to try the other one and like just, weigh up the pros and cons of each, and then maybe you'll also end up using them, like going between them dynamically in different situations, or you might find that you just like really dislike one of them and you refuse to ever use it again, in which case that's all good for you. It's all preference based at the end of the day. There's not too much difference between the over-under and the double overs. So yeah, find what works for you. And yeah, if you like this video, give us a like, leave a comment. If you've got any suggestions for future videos or things you think we can improve on or anything, we're super keen to hear it. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video.